Begin the current Daf Mesechtes Bava Metzia Daf Ayin Ches. Begin on the top line of the Amud. We're really just finishing up a conversation with the previous Daf, where the Gemara was differentiating between an Eirava and the security. Is that considered as a kinyan from the whole thing or not? And the Gemara said in a few different cases that it depends. If the guy is trying to get every dollar he's trying to collect from you, that means to say he wasn't transferring ownership until he gets all the money, and therefore it's not going to be a kinyan. But if he wasn't desperate for the money, then he was already marking it to you, and then you just owe the remaining money. And the Gemara continues on a related case regarding how it's evident from the person or not, regarding was he selling it or was he desperate for every dollar. The entire world. So we discussed in today's daf we continue with halacha the next mishnah. If someone hires a donkey, he rents a donkey. And he said he's taking it on the mountain, but he takes it somewhere else, takes it into the valley. So even if both are the same distance and the dice is going to be chayv, then the Mishnah starts differentiating between huchlikol and huchama. If let's say the animal slipped or if it got overheated, which obviously might be different, it depends on the location where he was supposed to take it and they took it in a different place, because mountain area is definitely different than the bika. And the Gemara discusses the possible reasoning for our Mishnah is Kalamara Dashal Balabayis Nikagazan. Whoever deviates from the contract that he had made up with the owner of the donkey is considered a robber, and therefore he's going to be liable. The Mishnah also discusses if someone hires rents a donkey, Vanasas Angaria, and it gets conscripted by the government, by the king. So the owner could tell him, says, look, what's yours is yours. It's part of your bad mazel, and the Gemara qualifies. It depends what type of Angaria. If it's Angaria Chizaris, that they take it until they get to another guy, and then they take away his and let you take back your animal, then the owner could say, look, you got to deal with it, your mazel. But it's Angaria Shein Chizaris. If he's not getting it back, once the government takes it, it's gone. Then the owner has to go and actually give the renter a new donkey. And the Gemara also differentiates regarding der chalicha nitla. If it was taken as he was traveling in his direction, then he could say harish l'chalav. But if it's not, it was the other direction, then he would have to actually go ahead and give him another donkey. So begin the current Daf Ayin Ches, on the top of the Amud. We're just really finishing up what we said in the previous Daf. Pshita. Says the Gemara, what's obvious is the following case. If a guy needed 100 zuz, we know that people don't have liquid cash, they have assets. So a guy needed 100 zuz, and so Boilis wouldn't have been. What he wanted to do, he wanted to sell a small field that was worth 100. That's all he needed. He only needed 100 for capital. But he didn't find anyone that was willing to buy his property that was worth 100. Okay, so Bezavin, he sold a larger field, but Messiah worth 200. That he was able to find the buyer for. Okay, now he kept on coming in and out to the guy who bought the field from him, saying that you owe me money, and the guy wasn't paying up. So on that says the Gemara, loikani. That means to say the buyer has not acquired it. Why? Because there's what's called anat sahadi. We testify that he was forced, that he was selling even in excess of 100. He could say, the reason why I was coming after you for the money, even though I only need 100, is because I wanted to buy another small field in place of it. I need 100 for capital for something else, and for a venture, and the other 100 I wanted to reinvest in another property. You paid me only 160 out of the 200. That's why I keep on coming for the money. And therefore, that means to say, as we had said in the previous step, is not going to be a valid kinyan, because he wasn't doing the transfer until he had every dollar that was owed to him. But Ella, the question that we do have is the following case. So this was pshita. But what happens if a guy wants to sell a field for 100? He wasn't able to find the buyer right away. But if he would put a lot of effort to go and try to find the buyer, he would have found someone willing to buy his small field. But people don't want to put in too much effort. So Vizavin, what he did was he sold a larger field, but Messiah never was able to find a quick buyer. But he was trying to get money from the guy, saying, "No, look, you owe me the money." So the question is, what's the halacha? So what's the question? On the one hand, you could say, because there's two svaras we said from the previous daf. which is what the Gemara is putting into this one case. On the one hand, you could say, yeah, he's not willing to make it a final sale. As we see, he's ayil v'nafik azuzi. He's like, I need the money. Until you give all the money, it's not a valid sale. Or, no. So the Gemara says, maybe it's kamoicher sadeyim mepnei asadami. Maybe the reason why, and that's what the last two words on the top of this, the first two words on the top of the summary for the previous daf that we had mentioned this svara, that there's another reason why a guy keeps on desperately trying to get his money. Not because he wants specifically for a different reason. He's afraid you're going to back out the buyer because it's a terrible deal. So, as Rashi explains, since it's because of the tircha of selling the $100 field that he was trying to make it easier for himself not to have to try to do that. Obviously, it wasn't so dear to him, this field, because if he really wanted to, he could have put in the effort to get a buyer to get for 100. So this that he's selling this field, maybe because he doesn't care so much about it, oiloi or not. Says you want to take it, let it stand. It's not clear in this case where a guy could have sold the 100 field. Instead, he's picking this 200 field because it's easier. So it's like a leich tazach. So he doesn't care so much about it. So therefore, maybe this would be qualified like a meicher sedem neider asadami, and therefore I'm just desperate to get my money because I'm afraid you're going to back out. Because if you back out, I'm going to put in the effort now to try to sell the $100 field. I don't want to do that. So quickly, just make sure let's get it done. But it would be that you're kind of. It's because usually when you're ayil b'nafik azuzi, it's like a sign that you're not willing to sell it all the way until you get all the money. So that's the shayla in this case. What is the actions exhibiting? And the Gemara says, let it stand. It's not clear what the halacha would be in this case. Now we said in the Mishnah, also just finishing up from the previous Mishnah, we said, if you hired a donkey driver or the guys who, the wagon drivers, so what we said you could do, you could hire other workers and put the charge onto what you still owe the first workers because they caused the loss for you, or you could actually mislead them. So the Gemara says, until how much can you charge, and we had referenced this already in the previous daf, how much can you charge on the expense of the first worker? So Rabbi Nachman says, up until how much that you owe them. So if let's say they did some of the work and they didn't get any payment yet, so now whatever it is that you owe them, you could rent other workers and add that on to what they're going to do so you get the job done. On that, it's very Rabbi Nachman, but the Brisa says more even than what you owe them, up until 40, 50 zuz. Somebody says no. Kitan when they learn the Brisa is Shabbos Chavila Liyadai, that there was a bundle that came to the hand of the employer. Meaning, if let's say the employer had in his possession from the first workers a lot, because like Rashi says, the way that workers often do, that they take a job of themselves, they bring all their tools to the home of the homeowner. And then this plumber left, and he left all his tools. He says, okay, I'm taking your tools. I'm going to use it to pay the second worker. He wouldn't mind a few extra tools, and that's how I'll be able to make up for the loss of what you backed out. So it doesn't contradict. If you have in your possession, if not, then it's obviously you can't charge him. So it's only going to be up until how much you owe him, but not more than that. With that, we continue with halacha, the next Mishnah. Again, continue on this theme of hasaycher, which is the theme of these parakim, this and the next parak. Hasaycher es achamar. So usually it can mean, the word saycher means different things, but in this we translate as renting. Someone rents a donkey. Now it's loilicha bahar. He had rented it in the rental. You go to the donkey rental, and you said you're going to drive it up the mountain. Now, although that the path is smooth and straight, but it was for a mountain. He didn't take it up the mountain. He took it at the end through a valley, or the other way around. Bebika, he had signed the contract. He had made up. He's renting it for the valley, but and he took it through a mountain. Now the Gemara is going to explain why is it in this reisha the Mishnah does not differentiate what happened to the animal. It doesn't differentiate if it slipped or if it got overheated. It just talks about if it goes and it dies and what's the halacha. But in the seifa, which sounds like the same thing, suddenly the Mishnah differentiates between going in the mountain and going in the valley, what happens to it? But for opening, the case of the Reisha says, even though it's the same on the odometer, you have the same amount of mil that you're going for the 10 mil that you made up, or else you pay more miles after that with the donkey. You went the same amount. Umeisa and the dies. Chayiv, you're going to be liable for what happened. Okay, now it says the Mishnah, the same case, but it starts differentiating. Again, someone hired rented a donkey to take it in the mountain. But they took it in the valley. Says the Mishnah, okay, now it starts saying, depends on what happens to it. That's going to be the difference if you're going to be liable or not. If the animal slipped, potter, you're going to be potter. Why? Because if anything, a mountain is like when the guy taking insurance, if he wants to know where you're going, he says, oh, you're driving over there. Oh, tons of accidents happen over there. Oh, we're going to charge you more or whatever. So on the mountain, it's, if anything, more room to slip because it's pointy and it's narrow. So therefore, if you into a valley and it slipped, so then you'd be potter because there wasn't any negligence on your part regarding the slipping. But if the animal overheated, then Chayiv, you're going to be liable because in a valley, it's more, as we know, it's a Grand Canyon, all these different things. When they're in a valley, it's way more heat because of the mountains surrounding it doesn't allow the airspace to get in over there. So for that, and it overheated, that was a negligence on the part of the renter. So you'd be chayiv. Let's say the other way around. Let's say you had rented the animal lelicha bebika to take it in the valley, but licha bahar, and you end up taking it on the mountain. So imechlika, if it slips, so chayiv. So he's going to be chayiv. Again, because a mountain is more slippery terrain, and you weren't supposed to take the animal over there. But if it overheated, potter, if anything, the mountains people go, it's the berg, you go for the frische lift, right? So if anything, if it got overheated over there, for sure would have overheated in the valley where you took it to, and they're going to be potter. Then the Mishnah says that im machmas hamala, however, if it overheated because of this car climbed Mount Washington, which is to go from the foot of the mountain to the peak, and that's why it overheated of the journey, then chayiv. Then you're going to be liable. I thought you said on the mountain you're not chayiv for overheating. Yeah, but here's not because of the airspace of the mountain. Here's because it had to truck up that he changed to go on the mountain. That's a big difficult journey. That's why it overheated. So then you're going to be chayiv. So Taisa says, how do you know? The ratio you said that if it's overheated in the mountain, you potter, and now you're saying that if it got overheated because of going up on top of the mountain, how do you know why it overheated? So that's Taisa. We see that it wasn't overheating when it was going up. It went up easy, and it kept on walking after that, and it wasn't sweating. Then it started getting overheated, so then that must have been not because of the traveling up. That's when you can be pot. As the Taisa says, how you'll know the difference regarding what. But if it was overheating as it's going up the mountain, and then it overheats, then you're going to be chayav. Continues the Mishnah. Hasoicher es hachamor. Someone hires a donkey. And vevrika, he rents a donkey, and the Gemara is going to explain exactly what it is. It's some type of a eye ailment. Oy shenasis engaria, where it gets conscripted, it gets taken for the service of the king. So so the owner could tell the renter, behold, what's yours is in front of you. Meaning, take it as it is blind now, and keep on going. Because it's also your mazel that caused it, just like my mazel. And go ahead, try to do whatever you can do with it on your journey. And let's say regarding the other case of an angaria is the same thing. Wait until they return the animal to you because it's also your mazel that caused it, and we'll both lose. But if, let's say, meisai nishbera, let's say the animal died, or the animal had an injury where now he lost his entire rental because he can't use it anymore, then chayiv, then the owner is obligated to sell the hide and the dead animal to for dogs, then to add on money and lahamid lechamar, and to provide for him another donkey, or to rent for him another donkey with the monetary value of the nevela, because this donkey was in meshubed to the renter. So you have to take whatever value this donkey has, sell it and buy one or rent one, and take that value and give this to the renter, or give him back his rental money. So that says the Mishnah, in that case, there's no harish achalaf anechad, there's nothing here anymore that he could use. You have to take the money and then go and give him another donkey to use.
Is that account for whatever the break caused the break?
We're talking about like an einus, meaning that the seicher is not chayav on einsin. Well, either way, I guess he would be part if it's meis, if that's considered meis samach masalach, yeah. Either way, I guess, then he would be potter. Taisus discusses soon in the Gemara later on this idea of meis samach masmalacha. It depends if he was meshana or not, yeah. Right, either way, I'm saying even if he'd be liable or not, the point is that when the remaining funds, they have to go and purchase a donkey and provide for him. So now the Gemara says the question that Rashi alluded to, Maishna Reisha, what's the difference? In the Reisha, the Mishnah didn't differentiate when we're saying that the Seicher is going to be Chayiv. We didn't say whether it's Heichlik or Huchama. Maishna Seifa, what's the difference in the case of the Seifa? That the Kamaflik, the Mishnah differentiates, well, when you change locations, whether it slipped or got overheated, what's the difference? So the Gemara says, explanations of the Reisha, why it wouldn't make a difference, you'd always be chayiv. So answer number one says the Gemara, Amad Rabbi Yanai, they said in the Shiva Rabbi Yanai, that Reisha, that doesn't differentiate between slipping or overheating, is because that neither one of those happened. It just died by itself. It just expired. Now, since you had done something different than was supposed to be, so he could tell him that the only reason why this animal died was shemesa machmas aver, because it wasn't accustomed to this type of airspace. The amrina, because we say avira dahar katla, it's the air of the mountain that killed him. That was too harsh for him. Some people go up, the ear stopped popping, the nose stopped bleeding. It was too much for him. Or we say, it wasn't used to the airspace of the valleys, and that was harsh for it. And I mean, avira the bika katla, we say that the airspace of it was too suffocating, and therefore that's what killed it. So that's answer number one. That if it just died, then the owner could tell him it's your fault because of the change of air. Or answer number two, says, we're talking about where it died because it was worn out from its load. So, if he took it on the mountain, he could tell him that, because you wore it out traveling to the top of the mountain, that's what affected it from the beginning. That's why it was worn out at a later point in time, even though it went on a smooth road, but it was just worn out from all the load that it was carrying, and therefore it died. And if he changed to take it into a valley, even though we don't see it sweating, and it's not such a hot day to say it got overheated, you could say, had it gone on a mountain, so the air would have been very different. It would have given it strength. It would not have gotten so worn out beneath its load. In the valley, there wasn't so much air, and therefore it was lacking energy, and therefore together with the work that it was doing, it got worn out, and therefore that's why it died. So it died from exhaustion. So that's answer number two, why the owner could tell him that it got worn out, and that's what Taisus explains. Says, even though you should say mesamach masmalacha, what do you mean? It's the work that it did. But however, since you changed, you're going to be chayiv, because if you were to take it somewhere else, it would not have gotten as worn out. Answer number three, Rabbi says, Kagun Shakisha Nachash. We're talking about specifically died from a poisonous snake that bit it, where usually it'd be potter because it's an einus, but the seich is going to be chayiv because the owner can attribute the donkey's death to the seich's change of route, claiming that in the original route there would not have been any snakes. Now that you changed, this is where it bit it. That's your fault, and therefore that's why the Mishnah doesn't differentiate. Another approach, answer number four, Chia bar Abba Amar B'Yechon, he says, Homani, he says, who's the Tana of our Mishnah? Remeirhi. That he says, Kol Amaver al Dasha Balabayis, whoever violates from what the owner had in mind, as he continues in Beis, Nikugazan. He's called a robber. And hence, like a robber, it's in his possession to be liable for all types of einzin. That's the ratio of the Mishnah that doesn't differentiate. The Sefer is Rabbanon, not a Gazlan. So we have to see each case, specifically when you change to the mountain, to the valley, is that a negligence or not? So regarding overheating, the valley would be. Regarding slipping, the mountain would be. The Reisha was Remeir, who said, no, you're a Goslin already, and therefore you're going to be chayiv in all types of einsim. Now, once we said that this opinion is Remeir, the Gemara tries to find exactly where do you find Remeir espousing this view that you're saying that he's the Tana of the opening lines of our Mishnah. If you think it's Remeir regarding the halach of dying with a Y, that it's not like we learned in the Mishnah in Baba Kama. The Mishnah says, and listen, someone gives wool to a dyer, to dye it red. And instead of that, he dyed it a different color, dyed it black. Or, Shachar hired him to do it black, dyes it red. Remei Ami says, so he gives back to the owner of the wool his value of his wool, according to the value of how much white wool, as it was given to him, would be sold in the marketplace. Why? Because the dyer acquired it with his robbery to pay how much it was worth when he robbed it. Because the fact that he changed what he was supposed to do, that is like he was a Goslin. This is exactly what we're looking for. This Remeir who holds that when you change from the Das Balabayas, you're a Goslin and therefore you have Kinyon, the Gizela, so that it was yours. Now the increase of the value is yours because you stole it the second you put in the wrong dye. That's Remeir. Yehuda may disagree, says no. He gets the lower hand. If the improvement, let's say the piece of wool was worth $10. Now that you made it colorful, wow, people get impressed, purple, beautiful wool, it's worth $100. And the expenses were only $20, so it would be a total of $30 worth. So if the improvement is more than the expenses, you give the craftsman, you give the dyer only the expenses, how much wood and herbs he had to use. You don't pay him his full value. Usually you pay the guy, the dyer, $60 because he's like, yeah, now it's worth $100 for you. But no, you're not going to pay him how much the improvement would be. You pay him only the expenses. Let's say actually if the expenses was more than how much more value than you made it, which sometimes you have to do it. It costs a lot to get a little improvement. People are willing to spend $10,000 to have like a $500 improvement in their house because it's worth it for him. But in this case, he actually would only give him the improvement, not the expenses. He gets the lower hand of the two. But Al Kapanim, that's Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi disagrees, says no. The dyer gives back just the value of the wool as was given to him. So you see, because it was Maval Das Balabayas. So he's the Tana of our Mishnah, says, no, Mimai. How could you prove from that halacha to over here? Maybe there is different dekani b'shina ma'isa, because he acquired the wool because he changed it from what it originally was. Now, there is an opinion that says in Baba Kama that Tzadi Gimel pays that shinu is kaina. By changing something, you acquired it. But by the donkey, you didn't change the donkey that you should be chayiv because of what you're calling kinyonik izela. You just took it somewhere else. Yes, you didn't do what he wanted, but you didn't make a change in the item itself. Maybe when did Remeir say that you're kainit is not because of mavadash balabayis per se. It's more because you changed the item itself. You put in the wrong type of a dye. So then you're kainit with that shinui. But in the donkey, you didn't change the donkey, you just took it somewhere else. Maybe that would not be considered as if you have kinyonik izela to say yichayv in all einsin. Tell rather says Gemara Meir, different halacha of Meir is what we're talking about. The Magvis Purim, regarding collecting the Purim money. What is this? That's how we learn the Brisa. Migvas Purim. Money that was collected by the Gabbai from the people in the community to give it out to the poor for Sudas Purim. Matanas Lavyoinim. So that says the Brisa Lapurim. That all has to be given for the poor people for Purim. Magvas Eir was collected by the city. Lo Yisrael has to be given to the people of that city. And we're not so precise to say, look, it's enough for them less than that. Let's take the excess that we got from Matanas Lavyoinim and give it to the charity that we have. No. Rather, Aval, Loichin es Hagalim, you take the calves, B'sheichten, you slaughter them, and you eat them to great abundance with all the money. You take all the money and you give it from Matanas Lavyoinim. Now, the leftovers, they weren't able to eat all that on Purim. Then you sell that and yipalakisa shel tzedakah, and then you put it into the charity boxes. Now, Rabbi Eliezer Omer, he says, Magvis Purim lePurim. Yeah, the money that was collected for Purim has to go for Purim. Ve'ein ha'oni reshoy likech behen, and the poor person is not permitted to take from that money which he gets Matan Zabiyam, he waits for Purim time. He's not take Ritzula sandal. He's not even take a strap for his sandals. I mean, you can't use it for something else. Elam kin hisna b'mayim ansher unless they made a stipulation with the assembly of the people of the town. But up until then, this is only for your Matan Zabiyam. This is for your big Purim Suda. Now, that's Divrei Reb Yaakov Sha'ama Mishum Reb Meir, the name of Reb Meir, which we see that you cannot deviate from what the collection was for, even by a shoe strap. But Reb Shimon Gamliel is Mekel. He says, no, the guy could use it whatever he needs to. But you see, Reb Meir is of the opinion that you cannot deviate from what the intention was when it was collected. So, which Taisa discusses, you see elsewhere that you could change when it comes to tzedakah money. So Taisa, yeah, but by Purim Gelt is different, and you can't change. But Al Kapanim, you see that this is Reb Meir's Shita. So the Gemara says, no, Dim Hasam Nami, maybe they're also, because Adaita de Purim Hudiyavle. When he gave the money to the poor, it was for the purposes of his Purim Suda. Adaita de Midachrina Lo Yavle. But for the intention of something else, he did not give it to him. And since that was not his intention when he gave it, comes out that the money is still in the possession of the owner, except for what's used for the Sudas Purim, which is not the case by the donkey because it is in the chazaka of the seicher. The renter is the one that's muhsik on it. Here, the way Rashi makes it sound like is that it's not your money, it's my money. I let you use the money for a Sudas Purim. Whatever's not going to be, you're a ganav, you're a gazlan. But here, it would be more of a stretch to say by the donkey that you're a gazlan because you rented the car, you rented the donkey. Yes, we said you should go, you said you're making up here, not there, but it's still lesser of a deviation than it is by the case of the Purim money, and therefore it wouldn't be a raya to say that there's the same kinyan gezela by the donkey as it is by the Mois Purim. So it says Gemara, okay, Elahor Meir the Tanya, rather it's the following Meir that we learned in the Brisa. Shimon ben Elazar, Reb Meir, Hanoisin dinu la'ani. If someone gives a dinner, a dollar, to a poor person, likich lecholik, to buy a shirt, likich by talis is not to buy a jacket. Talis, likich by cholik. You give him money to buy a jacket, you can't buy a shirt. Why? Because he's violating the intention of the guy who gave it to him. So you see, this is exactly what we're trying to say in the halacha by Mishnah, that if you said you're going to rent a donkey and take him to the mountain, you take him to the valley, or wherever it is, you're going to be chayiv, because you can't change. Says no. But maybe there it's different, because the asur lemichshadeh, they're going to suspect the bal habayis. They're going to suspect the gevir, who he took a vow, and he's not fulfilling it. Because people heard him saying, he says, that pauper, I bought him a talis, I bought him a jacket. And people are going to say, he didn't. I didn't see him with a new jacket. Because people are going to say, I'm a planya. This guy's saying, I bought this jacket, a new suit for this poor person. But they see him walking around with the same rags. He always did walking around. Now, the truth is, he took the money and bought a shirt. No, you cannot buy a shirt, not because of this halacha that we're trying to make of kol hamavel daitish alabayis nikagazan. No, very simple, because people can be chayshid the usher that he's a noid devein makayim. That's why. Or inami, that he's going to say zvinina legalima. I bought him a cloak, and he didn't buy. So it says Gemara, no. Imkain, if that's true, you're trying to be doicha and say that this is not a good source for I'm trying to say that remains the halacha of the Mishnah by saying it's based on a different principle of chashad, not because of maval daitish alabayis. Imkain, listen to chashad. The Brisa should have said that the reason why you cannot change is because of suspicion. But read the words of the Brisa. The words of the Brisa were because he's violating the intention of the balabais. No, you could have heard from this. It's because he's deviating. Because whoever deviates from the intention of the owner, Nikr Gazan is considered a robber, and therefore that's the understanding of the halacha of our Mishnah, that although the seif of our Mishnah differentiates what happens when you change from the mountain to the valley, if it overheats or if it slips, the ratio was going like Rameir. Rameir holds, no, it doesn't make a difference what happens. The second you change, you're a Gazan. Now it's all einsna are on you. So even if an einis happens, that usually a seicher is pater, you're going to be chayiv. Like we brought finally the source, the Rameir is of the opinion that if you're maval daitish alabayis, you're called a Gazan. Now the Mishnah then said, if someone rents a donkey, vevrika, and it's like a shine. So then the owner could tell him, look, you deal with it. It's your mazel just like my mazel. It says, my vevrika. So tergimu, which is really the translation, hairisa, which is this great light, but it's mulyabalaz, which it's this type of a cataract or something that you can't see in the black of the eye, which the side of the Gemara brings from the Gillian. It's like, in other words, it's like what's called sagi nahar. When you're talking about a blind person, you call him a sagi nahar, he has a lot of light, which is really a euphemism. Here, vevrika is lashon barok, like lightning, like basically a kengun ejein. So that's the animal that became blind. So it still could walk, but the owner could tell, look, Rav Ami says a different shot, it's avzekes. Avzekes is that worms started eating away at the leg of the animal. So basically, it's a hinkadiga. It's not a great animal, but again, it still functions. Maybe not as ideal, but he could tell him, look, you got to deal with it. Gemara brings the story with this word avzekes. Once we introduced it, Hahud Amalahu, there was someone that said to the people, avzekes b'milsa de malka. There are these worms. He says, I saw a moth consuming the silk in the king's storehouse. That's how Rashi says it. He says differently. But Amr Le, they said to him, B'mai, well, which cloths of the king is the moth eating up? Bitlei kesef? Was it in the linen garments, which is like a silver? Or bitlei dahav? Or in the golden vessels, which refers to the woolen garments, because they're dyed red, that has like a golden tinge. So ikadami, those that say that actually bitli kesavama, he said that it was in the linen garments, v'katlua, and they killed him because the moths don't eat up the linen garments. Ikadami bitli dahavam, or some say that he said it was in the golden ones, which refers to the wool, and b'shavku, they let him live because the moths would eat that up. According to some Gisar says v'katlua, whatever. Bakapan, that's the word of zekes that we spoke about, which these worms/moths, that's the parasites that ate away at the leg of the animal. Now, the Mishnah said, Oy shenasis angaria. Or if angaria, which is this, that the king's servants take what they need, eminent domain, and they take away the animals that they need. So, the owner could tell the renter, says, look, buddy, it's yours, you got to deal with it just like me. Now, this machlek is exactly how to qualify this halacha. Amar Rav says, Lo shana, we didn't learn this halacha that he could tell only if it's a conscription that ultimately will be returned to the renter. But if it's a conscription that is not going to be returned, so then, like Rashi says, essentially it's like Mesa Nishbara. It's like if the animal died or had a career-ending injury, like they call it. So then they would have to appoint for him another donkey because you're not getting it back. It's the same thing like dying. So it would only be if it's chayzeres that he could tell me. That's how Rav says. Shmuel Amei says, no, whether it's going to be returned or not returned, it depends on the following criterion. If it was taken from him that on the same path that he wants to go is where the king's servants want to go. And they say, hey, Moshka, they throw him off his donkey, and they say, hey, we're using the donkey now to carry the king's stuff. Then they could tell him, the owner could tell the renter, says, look, it's yours in front of you, meaning that's how Angaria works. They take the donkey of one guy, and the owner follows after them, and any donkey that they bump into after that, they take and they give back to the previous guy, and then the second guy follows after the donkey until they reach another guy. So therefore, he could tell him, it's also your mazel that caused it, because it's going in your direction. So go rent another donkey, go after it, until you bump into another donkey. Jesus discusses, tries to understand exactly, maybe differentiating between b'derech halicha means because you're on the roads versus in the house. In the house, they wouldn't have gotten you. You're on the roads, that's what they get you. Al kaponim, if it's on the road that you're going, the owner could tell him, look, it's your mazel. But if it's not on the path that he was going, then it's going a different direction. He's never going to get it back. Then again, he would have to give him a new donkey. Now, in the opinion of Shmuel, Meisveh, the Gemara asked from the following brisa. Actually, the halacha of our Mishnah. If someone, but it's a brisa. If someone rents a donkey and it goes blind, or it becomes mentally deranged, but like Rashi said, it's still fit for carrying loads. So you got to deal with it, buddy. If it dies, or if it gets conscripted, then he would have to appoint for him a new donkey. So says the Gemara, once according to Rav, it's not difficult to pose the contradiction of the different Mishnayos, because you can answer, in our Mishnah is Bangari Chazeres. So although we said Agaria, he yeah, that's because it's going to be given back to him. In the Brisa it's not going to be given back. So then, yeah, like we said, Rav had said that he qualified, so then he would have to give him a new donkey. It's difficult. How does the Brisa say that he has to go give him a new donkey? And we can say, what do you mean? He also has his differentiations. In the Mishnah is where he's on the way where he's going. Then he can tell Mashiach. In the Brisa it was taken from him, not in the path that he's going. You can't say that. Because something Tani Sefer, the Brisa itself brings another opinion that makes that same differentiation. The Sefer says, if it was on the way where it's going, taken, hey, look, you got to deal with it, buddy. If not, he has to give him another donkey. The inference is, he's not differentiating. And that he always holds that on the Garia, you give it back. But that contradicts our Mishnah holds on Garia that you don't give it back. So on that says, Amal Shmuel, he would tell you, you're right. But Lab Meikar Reb Shimon Elazar the Koi Kabasi. But don't you have Reb Shimon Elazar, it's like me, that does make this differentiation. Anodamri, Reb Shimon Elazar. I hold like Reb Shimon Elazar, who makes the differentiation that I make. Or Ibai Simidran to say, Kul Reb Shimon Elazar. It's all Reb Shimon Elazar. And the word's missing, and you have to read it like this. If someone rents a donkey and it goes blind or goes deranged, he tells him, here, buddy, you renter, you got to deal with it. If it dies or it was conscripted, he has to give him a new donkey. But when did we say this? If it was taken from him, not on the road that he was going. Oh, okay, then you got to give him a new one. It was taken on the path that he was going. You tell him, you got to deal with it. As you continue to the top of Ayin Testament Alf, that's Divrei B'Shimon Elazar. Shahaya. This is how the Gemara usually does when it makes it sound like that it's really one Tana, although it says halfway through the name of a Tana. If it's another one, it says no, Shahaya B'Shimon Elazar Aimer, because he said, if it was taken on the path that he's going, you'd say, hey, behold, what's yours is in front of you. But if not, we'd have to give him a donkey. Says the Gemara, can you really say that the Brisa of Shimon Elazar, it's all him, as you're trying to answer? But the Reisha, the Brisa said, if someone rents a donkey, and it goes blind, or goes crazy, you still got to deal with it, Mr. Renter. The problem is, we have Shimon Elazar quoted as saying, someone rents a donkey because he wants to ride the donkey, and it goes blind or goes deranged, you got to give him a whole new donkey. Wait a second, but you're just telling me the previous price of Shimon Elazar, which that says the same case of that you could tell Marish Chalav. So how could it be the Tanakama if he seems to contradict this somewhere else? That this is not a contradiction. This case of the second price is explicit, where he wanted the donkey to ride on it. If the animal's blind or goes crazy, it might throw him beneath the bridge, or might throw him off in one of the ditches, and therefore, that's where Chayv L'Hamel Chamar Achar. But carrying a load, that wouldn't be enough of a reason, since it ultimately does function, and then he'd tell him, Harish Shachal Vanecha. And the Gemara just makes a qualification. Amar Papa, he says, Uklis Chuchis, and glassware is Kalur Rochav Dami. That would be the same thing as a guy trying to ride, because if it throws it off the bridge, everything's gonna break, and that would be the same thing that he would chayv lahamaloi chamor acher versus the other case he could say arish chalav anecha. Thank you to any time.